After a wild weekend in Washington, D.C. last time out, that saw some significant changes to the 1UP Superstar Series, we are back in action for race number 13 of the season at Portland International Raceway for the Columbia Sportswear 300. This is our third road course of the season, and if the first two were anything to go off of, this is going to be a interesting race full of strategy and maybe one driver that sets themselves above the rest, and we're going to find out who that is in a few moments' time. Alongside me in the booth today is James Ellison. For a stretch of 4 consecutive races, he'll be with us. But let's talk about the elephant in the room first. The big news over the last week, 2020 Series champion Stephen Hunter. He's gone from the series. He retired at the end of Washington, D.C., a huge hole to fill in the sport, but he's at peace with his decision, and we'll remember him always as our first ever champion.
Yeah, it was very unexpected, honestly. Just things were going pretty good for him, and then just all of a sudden he just decided that was that. But if he's at peace with it, more power to him. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out with the driver shuffle that came out as a result of his sudden retirement, though.
Absolutely. We now have Devin Fair drafted in from his own Team Dayspring operation to suit up in the number 51 full-time from here on out. We hope that Fair will be able to produce some good results in that 51 car as well, and that has resulted in a shuffle up at Team Dayspring as well. We have Daniel Voiles moving over to the 08 that Fair once drove, and we have Blaine Saylor making his Superstar Series debut in the 64 that Voiles used to drive. So we're wishing for success for all 3 drivers, as we can now look at the starting lineup for today's 32-lap race and see a familiar face on pole position. Jake McMillan in the 21. He got pole once again on a road course. He's pretty good at that. And he's got Justin Hutchinson lined up alongside him. Diego Yepes lines up third with Andres Molina fourth. And then Devin Fair is already proving that the decision to move him up to the 51 was a good one. He rounds out the top 5. I'm hoping for good things out of Devin Fair because he deserves a good opportunity. And boy, has he got one right now.
Yeah, it's looking like the... Really looking forward to seeing how this plays out, because opportunities like this can be hard to pass up.
And with that being said, we have 42 cars lined up on the grid, and they're all ready for 32 laps of action, and so are we, and we hope you are as well. This is the 1UP Superstar Series from Portland International Raceway, and the green flag is mere moments away. Stay tuned, everyone. You're not going to want to miss a second of what's to come in the next 32 laps. As they roll onto the front straightaway, it leaves us in the hands of Jake McMillan and Justin Hutchinson. The green flag is out here in Portland, and we're underway in the Columbia Sportswear 300 as they barrel down this long front straightaway before braking hard for the chicane of turns 1 and 2. Let's see who gets the advantage as they head through this very slow portion of the racetrack, the slowest we'll see all day.
Yeah, and right now you can see right here, McMillan already pulling out ahead of Hutchinson, and you got... it's Yepes right there now making a move for second already.
Passing isn't the easiest thing in the world to accomplish here, but if you can do it early, it's going to be something that'll really reward you in the long run. Yes, you're right. Yepes gets ahead of Hutchinson for second. Now he can set off chasing after Jake McMillan to try and get his first career win in the series. It's been a while for Jake McMillan as well, but Diego Yepes, I'm sure, would love nothing more than to get his first career win right here at Portland.
Yeah, that's something you'll never forget, is the track you got your first career win at, no matter where it is, especially if you have to really fight for it. And I don't know, McMillan might make it tough on Yepes.
Yeah, we know how strong McMillan is on road courses and how strong Yepes is as well. But Jake McMillan, remember that dominant win he had at Watkins Glen a few years ago. He led every lap of that race. It was the 1UP Superstar Series first ever Grand Slam victory, and I'm sure he's looking forward to trying it again here at Portland. But as we complete lap 1, he's got about a 0.6 of a second lead over Diego Yepes, and they make it through the chicane cleanly as they head off into this set of corners for the second time.
Yeah, and for a minute there, I thought Molina in the 7 there was going to go after Hutchinson, but he's kind of backed off. they're spreading out a little bit right now from what I'm noticing, and that could be a factor that'll allow McMillan to just settle in and focus on the long haul.
Because there's still plenty of racing to go. We've got 31 laps left to settle this race. And as they go down the not straight, back straight here at Portland, that before braking hard for this next sequence, it's the fastest section on the track before braking hard. And now McMillan, it looks like he's stretching his lead out over the 77 of Diego Yepes. We've been mentioning him before, looking for that first win. Could it come today? He's going to have a big challenge in trying to fend off the 77 of Yepes for Jake McMillan to get his third career win and his first in nearly 2 years.
Yeah, he's hungry, and Yepes is hungry. There's a lot of hungry drivers out there, and I know we talked about him already. Devin Fair in the 51 for the first time this week. I'm sure he'd like to be able to prove something with the equipment he now has, as we got a nice gaggle of cars back here.
And the reason we went back here is one car went for a little spin in the chicane. That was the 92 of Jeffrey Finguy. He did a little 360 under braking, gathered it back up, and he's lost about 8 spots in that exchange, but he's back running, facing the right direction again. As we make our way back up to the top 10, Lane Sanders having a good run in 8th, just ahead of Christian Vargas in 9th. But going back up to Devin Fair, like you said, having a very strong run in this first race in this 51 car. Running in 5th, right where he started. And if he can pick off a few cars during pit stops, this will be a really good day for Devin Fair, who could very well become a third main force in this Rookie of the Year battle we have going on that's currently being hogged up by Mark Davey and Cale Teskar Jr.
Yeah, I think right now Teskar and Davey have both kind of just sort of forgot about Fair being in the battle with them. But a run like this could certainly remind them, hey, I'm here.
And I'm sure he'll continue to run like this for the rest of the season, because Devin Fair is an immense talent on both the short tracks and the road courses. He will be a big threat as the season continues. It might be a bit too late to make a playoff challenge, but he can certainly put this 51 car in the Owners' Championship hunt, and I'm sure Christian Vargas will be very happy about that if he can manage to do that. But as things stand right now, the gap between McMillan and Yepes has grown to about 1.1 seconds, and you can see the advantage of clean air right here. Jake McMillan has a 0.4 of a second gap over Yepes as far as the fastest lap is concerned. Remember, that is worth a bonus point in the Superstar Series. Yepes currently have a 1:11.2, I believe it was, and the fastest lap. That is 0.4 faster than what Diego Yepes managed to pull. So, great stuff out of Jake McMillan, but it is still early here at Portland.
Yeah, as he stretches out his lead, it looks like, well, for a second there, as we were going through some of the turns, I thought maybe Fair was catching Molina, but my eyes must have been deceiving. But McMillan is doing a great job here. Just doing, my nose of his, Yepes ain't pressuring him, so he don't have to really work the car or hard or wear out the tires super fast. And he's just cruising right now.
Absolutely. Exactly what he wants to see. Is nothing challenging him at the moment. McMillan is just cruising. Remember, he won pole at the Denver road course of last year and was on pace to win there, doing exactly what he was doing, having a strong run. But it was the pit cycle that eventually gave the race lead and the victory to Stephen Hunter, and that back when he drove the 51, and it turned out to be the final win of his career. So that 51, I keep going back to it, but if he can gain spots on pit road, he'll be a force to be reckoned with. But I'm sure Jake McMillan will be working hard to try and prevent that from happening to him a second time.
Yeah, talk about major PTSD. He'd feel like Hunter was back to get him again, but honestly, like I already said, we'll keep saying as long as he's still keeping that gap on Yepes. He's just doing what he needs to do, mind his own business, not overdriving it, especially in this slow part of turns 1 and 2 here. It's just what you need to do, as it looks like Hutchinson might be under attack from Molina here soon.
And we keep forgetting Molina was one of Superstar Series' original road course king. He's done so well on these tracks in the past. He actually got his first career win in the series on an oval, surprisingly, at Indianapolis last year. But he's still very good on these road courses. He's running in fourth right now. I'm sure he'll be a contender for the race win as the race progresses. But, as you said, the battle for third heating up between Hutchinson and Molina. So it's a very good run from both these guys. I just wonder, if Molina can get close enough, will he have a lunge at the 10 car as they go into one of these heavy braking zones here?
Yeah, I think he's just trying to size Hutchinson up here to find a spot where, even if he doesn't make a mistake, he can just make a move and get third away from him. It's going to be a challenge, but in a race where, excuse me a second, as this race goes on, I'm honestly curious as to what kind of strategies pit crews of like Molina, Hutchinson, Yepes, and even Farrell have to say to try to do in order to get by McMillan, even just through pit strategy. That looks like right now that's how they're going to get it.
Because we know these cars can make it to the end of the race on one pit stop. So what they could do is they can try and pit as soon as they think they can get away with it, take advantage of fresh tires, and make that their advantage. Because we've seen undercuts on road courses work before. It's just a matter of time, I think, before we see something like that happening. We're still quite a ways away from pit stops, though, but you can never start thinking about it too soon, because it's an integral part of these races in the One-Up Superstar Series. But Jake McMillan right now, all he's thinking about is keeping that 77 behind, and I think he's doing a very good job at that. As I was mistaken, it was not a 1:11.4, it was a 1:14.2. But even still, that is a very fast lap from Jake McMillan, and it's currently getting him a bonus point.
And that bonus point will definitely help him, but it's still hard to tell if that's going to stay, because once those pit stops come in, who knows what kind of hot laps will be laid down on the fresh rubber.
That is certainly true. We'll see if that lap from McMillan can hold up, as you see most of the field now single file sneaking their way through the chicane. But McMillan now has a gap he's pretty much stabilized the gap at about a second, give or take, over Diego Yepes, and they are pretty much dropping Hutchinson, Molina, and Devin Fair behind them at a pretty incredible rate. So, I think, barring any pit stop shenanigans, this could be a two-horse battle for the race win between Jake McMillan, who's on a 62-race winless streak, and Diego Yepes, I should say, who's never won.
Yeah, this is definitely looking like a two-man race early on, but one slip up from either one of them could easily make this just one man taken off, at least until pit stops, and then we'll see what happens.
Making their way off the final corner and down this long front straightaway here in Portland. We'll see what the gap is between Yepes and McMillan at the line. It pretty much stayed the same. McMillan gained a tiny bit on that lap over Yepes as they barrel it off in the chicane. It always looks, going through the chicane, it always looks like, through there, that Yepes is a lot closer than he actually is. That's just because of the closing rate of these cars. The braking zone will Constantine them together and then stretch them back out once they make their way out of the chicane. But the gap is about a second, and it's probably going to continue to stay that way unless either McMillan falters or Yepes makes some big gains.
Yeah, and I think they're both enjoying the fact that they can just focus on, well, themselves right now, but maybe just each other later on with the 10, 7, and everybody else falling well behind them right now. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, provided anybody can do anything about the 21.
Certainly the case, as McMillan and Yepes are stretching their legs out over Hutchinson, Molina in their battle for third. But yeah, like we said, the initial launch off the starting line and down into that first chicane really determined a lot, because Yepes was able to clear Hutchinson on the opening few corners, and that has made a huge difference in his race for Diego Yepes. He's now closing in on Jake McMillan. He cut the gap down by 0.2 that lap.
Yeah, that was a good lap for Yepes there. If he can keep doing something like that, he'll be all over McMillan soon, unless 21 figures out what's going on and changes things up to keep him from making the gains he just made on that lap.
McMillan is no stranger to success on road courses. He does a lot of sim work on road courses. He's very familiar with left and right, the shifting points, the braking zones, everything to do with turning left and right in a stock car. He knows how to get things done, and he's currently about 3/4 of a second clear of Diego Yepes of Portland. We're about a third of the way through this race. Working lap number 10 now. I would expect to see these guys on pit road in about 8 to 9 more laps. So, with that being said, it's going to be very interesting to see who jumps in first, because that could be the key to who wins this race.
Yeah, like we were talking about earlier, we have seen undercut strategy work, but there's not always the case, no matter what track you're on, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And if it does, you make some huge gains, and it could give you the victory when you were well behind at one point. Or if you're leading, it could really screw you over.
Looking back now at the battle for third between Hutchinson and Molina, Devin Fair's quietly lurking back there in the event that the 10 and the 7 have a little coming together. He could swoop past both of them. But for now, looks to be a battle between the 10 and the 7 for third. Because considering the thrashing put on last week by the Fords and Toyotas, we now have a Chevy and a Dodge leading this field. So it's a very good parity between manufacturers as we now look at last week's winner, Mark Davey, having a very solid run in 10th place at the moment. He's always good on road courses, maybe not to the extent he was in the Nitro National Series, where he was the only driver able to take on the road courses over there. But he's still doing a very good job in the 10th position, hanging on just ahead of Sam Denotto in the 00, and backing up his run of form as of late. He won in DC in commanding fashion, and he's holding on to a top 10 here as well.
Yeah, he's just looking to keep riding that momentum, because you get a win or a top 5, you want to keep riding the momentum wave. It's just, you don't want that to end, but unfortunately, we know all too well that can end right quick and very suddenly, and sometimes it hurts.
Absolutely. We're hoping it doesn't happen for Mark Davey. He's having a stellar rookie season up to this point. As we make our way back up to the front, Jake McMillan has extended his lead to about a full second now, and they have gapped Justin Hutchinson by about 5 seconds. So this is very much becoming a two-man battle for victory here in Portland, unless pit stops play a factor, which they very well could, because Hutchinson and Molina and Fair and everyone else, they're still in striking distance to where if they get on pit road soon enough, they will be able to make gains on the leaders on their fresh tires and be able to charge right past them if they take an extra lap.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm pretty sure both McMillan and Yepes are thinking about, as they know that here the next several laps they're going to be having to make pit stops. It's going to be interesting to see what their strategies are and what the rest of the field's going to be.
Because right now, Yepes and McMillan have built a very big lead over the rest of the field. They're still within screenshot of the two leaders, but not for much longer at the rate they're going right now. So, Yepes has got to start thinking less about the pit stop and more about what he can do on the track to try and chase down this 21, who so far has not made a single mistake all day. So at this point in time, what can Yepes do to start trying to make gains? Can he try braking later? Can he try apexing the corner differently? Can he try something to make the difference, to pull in ground on McMillan?
Yeah, he's got to try something. He had something earlier. I don't know if it's just he could repeat that move, or if McMillan found something to keep him from trying it again. But it's still sort of stabilized. You see, it's back to what we were looking at about 4 laps or so ago, and kind of hard to see what's going to happen here, because neither one seems to really have an advantage at this point.
Yepes did gain 1/10 of a second on that last lap, so he was doing something right. He just needs to continue doing that, and I think a lot of it is centered around that chicane right there, because McMillan is clipping the curb on the inside every time, while Yepes is intentionally avoiding the curb entirely. So I don't know whether it's just about their driving styles or maybe something to do with the car, but Yepes taking that chicane a little differently. Maybe that's the difference in the end.
Yeah, that difference, if it pays off for Yepes, we could be looking at a first-time winner here. I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out, but at the same time, I'm a little hesitant just go and assume that things are going to play out a certain way.
Because as we always say, anything can happen in these one-up superstar races, and usually it does happen that way. But we're closing in on half distance in this race. We got a lot of racing still to happen now. As we look through the rest of the field, see where your favorite driver is running. Everybody in the field is on the lead lap. No one's retired yet. And they're all separated by about 40 seconds on track. As McMillan barrels down the front straightaway to complete lap number 14. He's led every lap from pole. He's on a pretty comfortable Sunday drive at the moment. But Yepes closed the gap by another tenth that time.
Yeah, he's found something, and it could be heating up here in a little bit, but I'm just kind of curious. I mean, you were looking through there. I couldn't help but notice the 08 Boyles. He seems to be having a bit of a mid kind of day there, driving in his new ride.
Well, keep in mind that Daniel Voiles wasn't even supposed to run the road courses this season. He was supposed to split that Team Dayspring car with another driver whose deal ended up falling through. So Voiles has had to step in full time, and now he's got to run tracks that he didn't intend on running. So maybe it's just a bit of shaking the rust off, but hopefully we'll see the 08 and the 64, for that matter, move further up the field, because Team Dayspring is a team that really needs to show how good they are now that they're in that big technical alliance with Revolution Racing.
Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting, because you had Fair in the 08 for Team Dayspring, and it was doing really well there. I'm thinking that once he gets used to it, in the 08, Voiles is going to have some really good runs coming up, as Yepes looks like he's kept it about the same this time.
And notice he's doing the exact same thing I've been talking about. He's avoiding that inside curb on the chicane completely every single lap he goes by there, while Jake McMillan just clips the inside of that curb with his left side wheels each time. So, I don't know if that's the difference maker or not, or maybe it's somewhere else on the track, but it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on here, as the two leaders are just pulling further and further away from the field. The gap now 5.6 seconds over Hutchinson in third.
Yeah, 2-horse race right now, pending pit stop shakeups, and McMillan's just doing what he needs to do, Yepes doing what he can do, and yeah, this is definitely shaping up to be between the two of them right now.
We're closing in on pit stops, though, and anything can happen there. It could be a slow stop, could be a collision on pit road. We've seen those before as well. But as we come to take the halfway lap here this time, Jake McMillan has led 16 laps so far, so he will at least get a share of the most laps led bonus point. So if he can hold on to that fastest lap as well and win the race, it'll be a max points day for Jake McMillan in the 21. But actually, he's gapped the 77 by 2/10 that last lap. So Yepes is starting to fall back a little bit. Maybe McMillan was just saving his stuff to crank out a fast lap right there, or maybe the 77's falling off. Either way, Yepes got a lot of work to do to catch up to that car, as now we look back at the battle for third. It's still heating up between Hutchinson, Molina, and Fair for third, fourth, and fifth.
Yeah, this is about the most interesting it's going to get for these guys right now, because unless the leaders have issues on pit stops or happen to both have an issue at the same time before pit stops, these guys right now don't really seem to have a shot at the victory.
And remember, we do not have full course yellows on the road courses, only locally sourced ones, because of logistics and time issues. But if an incident were to happen between those two and the caution would not come out because it's a road course race, as you see a couple cars come out of the pits here, right in front of the leaders, we're going to have some lap traffic perhaps play a factor in this. It looks like the 44 of Chase Chris, the 73 of Daniel Bouchard, and the 64 of Blaine Saylor, and it looks like two of those have damage to their cars. Maybe there was a collision on track at some point that caused these guys to pit, in which case I'm worried as to why the 44 would have pitted with them. Maybe this is just a strategy call for the 44, but either way, these three are now in danger of falling off the lead lap, and in fact the 44 already has.
Yeah, I was kind of curious when I saw the I don't like to know what happened. Just didn't brake fast enough in the case of like Sailor, but who knows? It's certainly throwing a bit of a wrench into things here. Maybe not so much as I would have initially thought, but it could play a factor.
Because now Jake McMillan is stuck in the turbulent air of Blaine Saylor's car as they head down off the final corner again. And Bouchard's well clear of this. He's going to be able to hang on to the lead lap. And considering these guys have a tire advantage now over the leaders, even with the damage on their cars, they should be able to pull away, as we see Jeffrey Finguy, who made an early pit stop as well. And it looks like Jared Polanski also has pitted this time by. So the pit stop cycle has begun. Jared Polanski's tried the undercut on the top 5.
Yeah, and it looks like lap traffic messed up Yepes a little bit because he is now falling back by about what looks like 1.5 seconds. Traffic played a factor, just not in the way I was initially thinking it would.
But Yepes starting to close the gap back up, and he better do it in a hurry because the pit stop cycle has started here at Portland International Raceway. I'm just wondering if the leaders come in this lap. I imagine they should, because they have to have been told that Jared Polanski came in on that last lap, as well as I'm sure a few others, including Jeffrey Finguy. But Polanski is the only one of the leaders who seems to have bit the bullet and pulled into the pits here. As let's see what they do on this lap. Yes, they will be coming in this time by Jake McMillan, Diego Yepes. They pit together. And looking back for the rest of the field, it looks like all the rest of the leaders are going to pit here. Oh, with one exception, Mark Davies going to stay out an extra lap, pick up a bonus point, and he's going to try and stretch it and see what he can do from here.
Yeah, this is an interesting call by Mark Davies. We just got to see how this plays out, because with most of the leaders going in, I don't know how this is going to work out, but it's going to be interesting to see, as it looks Kel Teskar Jr. as well, among others.
Yes, Emma Carter stayed out, Jeff Bolton stayed out, Nelson Reeves stayed out, Felix Anderson stayed out, Blair in the 19, Daniel Voiles in the 08, he stayed on the racetrack. Those look to be the only ones that have stayed out under this pit cycle. But it's interesting to see what these guys can do, because they knew they were not going to be able to win this race if they just did what the leaders did. So they might as well try something different, see what it does for them, and at this point, you might as well, because you're not going to be able to... And Echo Ross also stayed out in the 39. But you see Jared Polanski, he's managed to leapfrog a few cars by pitting earlier. His tires are all warmed up now, and he's catching Devin Fair, whose tires are still cold, fresh out of the pits. The 18 could make a pass on the 51 here, as the rest of the cars that stayed out now come in to make their pit stops on lap 20.
Yeah, I had a feeling they were going to go on one extra lap to try to get something, like especially the 01 Mark Davies there. I don't know if he was actually able to get a bonus point, but it was worth the attempt. And now
he did get the bonus point.
It's nice to see. We're trying to see just how well the strategy will do, though.
As we don't see any of the leaders coming through, except now we see Jake McMillan and Diego Yepes in our shot. They're going to easily clear all of these cars to take the lead back. So Davey will have led 2 laps of this race. They're probably going to be the only laps not led by Jake McMillan today. But as they barrel it off into the first chicane, McMillan has maintained his lead over Diego Yepes, and the gap is about 1.2 seconds now. But as they make their way out of the pits, you can see Roberto Crown Jr. was another car who pitted early and gained a lot of track position as a result. But as things stand right now, you can see that Jared Polanski did get around Devin Fair, so moved the 18 up into the top 5. but Mark Davey should cycle out back into the top 10, with Lane Sanders holding on to the final top 10 spot at the moment. Either way, this has been a thrilling battle for strategy and pit calls. Either way, Jake McMillan, he's had the car to beat all day, and now that the pit stops are over with, he's got a pretty big lead over Yepes. Now he's just got to think about car control.
Car control is easy when you're not being pressured. So as long as Yepes doesn't get up right on his bumper and try to make something happen, McMillan doesn't really have anything to worry about.
There's still 11 laps to go in this race, though, and anything can happen as a result. But these cars are going much faster now that they're on brand new sticker tires, and the gap now has closed from 1.2 seconds down to just 0.9 of a second. So Yepes gained a lot of time on that last lap. His outlap was very good compared to McMillan's, but as you can see now, they have put 5.5 seconds between themselves and Justin Hutchinson in the 10, and a further 0.8 on Molina and Polanski, who are now battling for 4.
Yeah, there were some gains that were to be made from others. Like you said, Polanski gained some spots and could end up with a top 5 out of that, pending anything going wrong for anyone. But yeah, I'm not surprised to see the 21 and the 77 are back 1-2 again.
They have proven to be the best 2 cars all race long. We're coming to 10 laps to go here. What can stop these 2 at this point? I'm not sure anything can, but we've seen crazy things happen in these races before. You never know what lurks around the next corner, and the running order isn't finalized until the checkered flag flies. So take this with a grain of salt as these 2 continue to pad their lead over Hutchinson and Molina. But these 2, they got to be in a sort of comfortable spot. They're running 1-2 with a huge lead over third. It's just, like I said, danger lurks around every corner, and you can never let your guard down, especially in these closing stages of a race.
Yeah, you never know. Something could happen in the back. You'll have a lap car limping around, like a wounded car limping around, and they could just really mess up your day. But for now, smooth sailing.
Diego Yepes, even if he doesn't win this race, he'll be on pace to get his career best finish in the Superstar Series. I'm sure he's not thinking about that, though. He knows he's got a win in his sights. And if he can just get around that 21, who's been a pain in his side the entire day, he could be the one winning this race. But Jake McMillan is just as hungry to win a race as Diego Yepes is. McMillan, it's been 62 races since Jake McMillan last went to victory lane in that dominating performance at Watkins Glen. It's been a very long time, and if McMillan can hold on to win this one, I'm sure it would be very special, holding off one of the greatest on the road in Diego Yepes.
Yeah, he's doing a good job, and it's kind of still fluctuating a little bit right now. We're at about 0.8 of a second between the 2 of them, but Yepes it's just got to make every effort he can and hope he doesn't use up his stuff too soon.
Yeah, he's got to save a little bit for the end and hope the 21 has to push hard to try and counter what the 77 is doing, because these guys, they don't need to worry about what's behind them. They've got 6.7 seconds over the third place battle. They can just focus on each other, but it all comes down to who uses their equipment up first. It's going to be the key here in settling who wins this race.
Yeah, like I said, the keys to who wins the race, it's just amazing to watch sometimes, even as nothing else is happening. And there's 2 drivers like McMillan and Yepes, in this case, just try to figure out how to beat the other.
And we're coming now to about 8 laps to go in this race. Just about 8.5 miles to go. Or more, no, 15 or so miles. I'm getting my calculations wrong as per usual up here, but I don't have a calculator on me. That's someone else. But as things stand right now, Jake McMillan has a seconds lead over Diego Yepes and a 7.3 second advantage over Justin Hutchinson. They don't have to worry about third on back. They can just focus on the first and second place battle. Because right now, they're the only ones in contention to win this race, unless something crazy happens, which it very well could. But as they barrel it off down this very not straight back straightaway here in Portland, these two contenders are putting a lot on the line to try and get either their first win in quite some time or their first win altogether.
Yeah, two very important things to think about here. McMillan, like you said before, has not won in a long time and would really like to. But yet Yepes, he really, really, really wants that first win. And he can see it right out his windshield right now as he dropped another 0.2 a second there.
He's gaining time, but will he be able to make it up in enough time? Because we now only have 7 laps left here at Portland. It's going to be a waiting game for this, because if Yepes can catch McMillan, that's one thing. We've seen that happen before. Passing him, it's a whole nother story. Could we see a bumper put to the back of the 21 under heavy braking? We've seen that happen before as well. We've seen this happen with these guys before, and I'm sure it wouldn't sit very well with the 21 team. I'm sure it would sit very well with the 77 team, but we still have 6.5 laps between now and the checkered flag.
Yeah, a bumper to the 21 would certainly, like you said, would not be a popular thing in the 21 camp, but yeah, I don't think Yepes is going to care unless McMillan comes after him for it.
And I very much doubt that would happen. These are well-tempered people. But as we come off the final corner once again to take 6 laps to go in this race, Jake McMillan is just cruising. He doesn't need to worry about too much at the moment because Yepes is now only making marginal gains on the 21 at this point. So he can just focus on running his line, doesn't have to look in the mirror. I'm sure his spotter and his crew chief are telling him, don't bother looking into the mirror at all for the rest of this race. Just look at the windshield, focus on what's ahead of you, so that way you're able to control your own destiny instead of letting the 77 dictate it for you.
Yeah, and that's the benefit that McMillan has right now. You don't have to worry about being pressured by someone who may be behind you but isn't exactly right on your bumper. So he's just gonna mind his business and keep going with what he's doing. And if his spotter tells him the 77 is closing, then he'll have to worry. But for right now, he's just, as we've already said, he's just cruising.
He can taste that third career win. It's his first in 2 years. It's got to be on his mind now as we're closing in on 5 laps to go from Portland. Just about 10 miles to go between Jake McMillan and that win. But as you see, Daniel Bouchard in last at the moment, just making his way through the first chicane now. They're going to catch lap traffic by the end of this race, but I don't know if they're going to actually catch them enough for it to be a major issue. But as we see a little slip from the 21 coming out of that chicane, that could allow the 77 to close in. There's that mistake that we were talking about, and it's at the worst possible time, right at the end of the race, as Yepes makes a little mistake of his own, missing the apex of that one corner. So I guess they've evened things out as things stand right now.
Yeah, but you look at it right now, 0.6 of a second at the line, but those 2 mistakes, one each, just could really mess with how close Yepes is or how much of a gap McMillan's able to hold.
I think the 21s was a little more costly because he slipped on the exit of the chicane, and that's going to cost you momentum all the way down to the next braking event. But for Yepes, just missing the apex of one corner, you can diamond it off and make up ground here. I think he is a little closer this time as now we're coming to 4 laps to go from Portland.
And I gotta say, there's gotta be some Yepes fans in the stands who are probably cheering for him to try to catch up. As we see right here, he lost a little bit, but that's not too bad. He's still pretty close. He's still got a chance. If McMillan makes another mistake here and he doesn't make any mistakes, I think Yepes may have a shot here coming into the final laps.
We have 4 laps to go from Portland, and Jake McMillan has got to be worrying a little bit now. He knows Yepes has seen a chink in the armor for McMillan. He knows that the 21 has a weak point now, and then he can attack that weak point for the rest of the race. My question is, will it be enough with only 3.5 laps to go for the 77 to close up on this leader and try and steal a win away?
Yeah, it's all about being calm, calculated, listen to what your crew chief and your spotter are telling you about what's going on, even as you can see it happening in front of you. Sometimes you need a little bit of a different perspective to help you see what you need to do, and I think Yepes may actually be able to find something here and get pretty close, if not be able to catch up to McMillan and do something.
3 laps to go now from Portland International Raceway, and McMillan's gap is just growing that little bit more. It's now up to 0.8 of a second, almost 0.9 of a second now between McMillan and Yepes. These two have battled it out for the win so hard in this race. Either one, you could make a case for earning this win as we now look back at this big gaggle of cars who are battling it out from third on back. Mark Davey on his fresher tires has actually caught these guys from a few seconds back, and they've pulled about 10 seconds now on a 9th place battle between Lane Sanders and Sam Donotto. So these guys are in a safe spot as well, only worried about each other. The difference is there's a lot more of them here than in the case of McMillan and Yepes. Is to see Devin Fair hanging on the 6th place, doing a pretty good job, and he's only got about 2.5 more laps to settle his first top 10 with his new team.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job here. And, you talk about Sanders and Donotto back there. I couldn't help but notice Sanders was 10th a little bit ago. We were so busy watching what was going on with McMillan Yepes. I did not see if someone dropped out of the top 10 or if things were just getting reshuffled.
It was Roberto Crone Jr. who fell out of the top 10. Not a surprise, he pitted earlier than everybody else, so maybe his worn tires are kicking in a little sooner. We now have 2 laps to go from Portland, and the battle for third is just heating up between these 6 cars. But the focus now back to the battle for the lead, which has started to string itself out just that little bit as Jake McMillan starts to pull away once again from Diego Yepes. Yepes has got to be thinking he's running out of chances because now the gap is a full second. He's got to be thinking time's running out. Got to start being desperate.
At desperation, you don't want to have that set in as you're looking for your first win. You don't want to be the one who every week is saying, "What do I got to do? What could I have done different?" You don't want what if haunting you when you don't make it work out for your first career win.
As you see the lap traffic up ahead of the leaders, 4 cars, 3 of them from Henley Bemidji Racing, and then Daniel Bouchard as well. But that's not going to matter to these leaders as they're coming to the white flag this time around. Jake McMillan is 1 lap away from his first win in 2 years.
And it looks like Yepes lost another 10th there. He may have used up all his stuff, or he may be, I don't know, he may have saved a little bit. I don't know. Right now, pending any mistakes from McMillan, it's all over, potentially.
Coming through this sequence of corners for the final time, I think they are going to catch the lap traffic, but it's not going to come until the final few corners as Jake McMillan now powers around this section of the racetrack for the last time. Jake McMillan will have led 30 of the 32 laps in this race. Not quite a Grand Slam. If he had led every lap of this race, it would have been his second Grand Slam, but I'm sure he'll take it regardless, even if those 2 laps slipped him by. But coming down the back straightaway for the final time, Jake McMillan. It has been 62 races since he last went to victory lane. I'm sure he remembers that day at Watkins Glen. We all do. But as he rounds the final few corners for the final time, he catches Jesse Johns, but it's not going to matter to him. As off the final corner, the wait is over for Jake McMillan. After 62 races without a victory, he gets his third right here at Portland International Raceway. Jake McMillan wins the Columbia Sportswear 300 in a dominating performance ahead of Diego Yepes, who gets his best career result in the Superstar Series. Justin Hutchinson, Andres Molina, Jared Polanski complete the top 5 ahead of Devin Fair, who gets his first top 10 with his new team. In 6th place, Ben McDonald joins his teammate in the top 10 in 7th ahead of Mark Davey in 8th. And then You have to look all the way back here to find Lane Sanders, who did a great job hanging on to a top 10 spot in ninth. And Sam Denoto finally gets his first top 10 of a very miserable season for him. That should help him jump up the points a little bit. But how about the job Jake McMillan did, holding off Diego Yepes and the rest of the field on the opening stretch to get his first victory in a very long time. The 21 is a winner once again.
Absolute domination, and honestly, Yepes kept him honest, even if he never put any full pressure on him. And he just did everything that he could, and you can't discredit what Diego Yepes did, because he did everything he needed to do, and he got his best career result out of it, even if it wasn't the win he was looking for. That's something to be proud of, even if he still looks back and says, "What could I have done?"
But there's not much time to think it over, because we're coming back in not too long of a time for our third crown jewel race of the season, and a bit of a home race for you. It's our second annual Brickyard 400 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's one of the biggest races of the season. That's something we gotta be looking forward to, considering Andres Molina posted an upset there last year. Could Yepes, for example, pull a bit of a surprise at the Brickyard this year?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch, and that's a race I am looking forward to one day being a part of. But for right now, I'm just going to focus on my efforts in the Turbo Truck Series. But man, that's going to be an interesting race to watch and see who can claim that win.
Yeah, so for Revolution Racing, it's a triple top 15 effort in their first race without Stephen Hunter. I'm sure Hunter's got to be watching this race from home and thinking, it's a good job these guys are doing. They're going to do just fine without me. So, from James Ellison and from myself as well, we say goodbye from the Portland International Raceway. We'll see you again in Indianapolis very soon for the Brickyard 400. But for now, Jake McMillan's got to be over the moon right now. He is your race winner. After 62 races without a win, he gets it done at Portland. That has got to be one of the biggest wins of his one-up Superstar Series career.